la expansión. ¿Puedo poner aquí mi mano?
Sí.
¿Me puedes dar un abrazo? ¿Qué es JC para mí? JC es mi hijo. Mi hijo representa para mí la resiliencia, la persistencia, representa la fe, la esperanza, representa tantísimas cosas que no lo pudiera decir en una simple cámara.
I don't know a person that is more devoted than a parent with a person with a disability. I think every parent has the hardest job in the world, but parents who have a child or multiple children with a disability are some of the most fierce, hardworking parents I've ever met.
You know there is greater need for those with disability. My nephew has autism.
Because for my family, disability isn't an abstract idea. It's part of our everyday life, our love, and our story.
María Vázquez.
No más barreras para la comunidad latina.
Sí se puede, 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 sí se puede.
Algo que está sucediendo que es muy impactante en nuestra comunidad son tantas negaciones de servicios que tenemos. Y no nada más en esta zona, sino en todo California. Eso es frustrante.
There's data available that demonstrates disparities, and the Latino community is especially impacted by these disparities. The sense of injustice, or where I get a sense of injustice that's happening, is when there is something that I perceive, or it seems to me is a systemic issue, and people are told to resolve it using those individual rights options, like an appeal.
For the most part, a lot of families aren't aware of what's there for them. Just like any family, you know, the resources, the fear of even, because what's happening in the nation, that's trickling down to the local level as immigrant families, right? The fear of even wanting to get out there to look for resources because their fear of being taken away from their families or families being separated. That is real, and we have to make sure that we are available. We are resourceful. We are pushing information out that's there for them to know that we're here to help and not to create any more additional fear that's already there.
Our resources, and so I look forward to how we're able to work through the system, how we're able to change the system, how we're able to make improvements together.
Presently, there isn't anything that documents when someone is denied a service unless there's an appeal process. That matters because sometimes a denial can be just a conversation, and a conversation doesn't necessarily help a person get an appeal process.
The sense that the system isn't transparent enough causes is that it's hard to build trust. Transparency really helps with building relationships, building trust, and continuing important conversations.
AB 1220 was a legislative process where we requested that in the IPP process for individuals who are part of the regional center, when they are denied a service, it is documented. So in the efforts of transparency and to really honor the process of equity and making sure that people have the same access to services that they need, we asked through this legislative process that it's documented and that there is a standardized way to document when someone is denied a service, what kind of service they're being denied, and the reasons for it.
I felt a lot of empathy for LARC, quite honestly, as an organization, because I know what it's like to work a bill, work it very hard, and have it at the last minute not cross that finish line.
Si decidimos que hay algo que One is, you always feel a sense of disappointment when you and your agency have supported a bill and it doesn't pass. There's always a sense of disappointment with that.
Yes, the bill didn't pass Appropriations Committee, but it really brought us to a level of this is not a failing. This is actually an empowerment to continue to do the work that we do.
Y fue el trabajo de ustedes, realmente.
Contractors that are hosting that. And while our efforts through AB 1220 ultimately weren't successful in the sense of getting the bill passed, I think it was successful in, number one, giving people the skills that they needed to be able to engage in this work in the future. That's a huge success because now you're investing in people, and those are skills that people can take with them to everything that they do.
And we found out almost immediately the department was willing to collaborate with us even without legislation. We were fortunate enough to say, oh, okay, well, there's still another way.
We shouldn't focus on just a distinct point in time. It really is part of a broader conversation about how we better and more equitably support people from diverse backgrounds.
The summit, it was just incredible. We worked really hard on getting our priorities for 2026, that the whole coalition, LARC, will work throughout next year.
Estamos muy orgullosos de ser parte de este gran trabajo, de ensalzar a la comunidad hispana, sobre todo al habla hispana, y que estamos trabajando también en empoderar a las familias y en crear nuevas pólizas o nuevas líneas para que nuestros amados seres queridos también tengan una vida digna e inclusiva.
What's going to happen when parents are no longer here? We're concerned about who's going to take care of them, not only financially, but legally, in employment, housing, health. Who's going to take those responsibilities?
Either you or the person you care about most in the world is experiencing problems and lacking services. I don't ever want somebody to feel frustrated for those reasons. And so I always want to make sure that the toolbox people are carrying around is always full and gives them lots of options.
And so one of the things that sets LARC aside is not only the willingness to come to the table with proposed solutions, but also the willingness to collaborate. And so I think that's really the heart of it, that collaborative spirit, which means a little bit of give and take on everybody's side, and ultimately is rooted in the understanding and the trust that we're all here for the same thing, which is to improve the lives of so many Californians.
Because I may not get to see the fruit of my work one day, right? I may be the one planting the seed so that someone else can have a brighter future, and that's just as important.
The same way we know how to appeal stuff is how do we define an issue as a systemic problem and then find a systemic solution? That, to me, is one of the more difficult aspects of the system, is what is the critical number of people that we need to demonstrate a problem is systemic, and therefore we need to have a systemic solution.
So it's important that we recognize what's needed, and as leaders like myself as a mayor, I'm always constantly out in the community, and I always say, hey, I'm here. So don't hesitate to reach out, to engage, to have a conversation. What is your need? So we know how we can better serve.
LARC, the California, not just a project or an event, it's actually a movement that makes an impact in the whole state for people with disabilities.
Porque cada uno somos la fuerza y cada uno creamos ese poder de cambio que necesitamos. Es muy importante que trabajemos en esto como comunidad y para así crear una coalición grande, un movimiento importante para que esta disparidad desaparezca poco a poco.